You're the only one in his family with no real life anyway, so you can handle it. My sister-in-law said that at Thanksgiving dinner, loud enough for the whole table to hear. My brother laughed. My parents nodded like she'd said something wise. I put down my fork, set it very carefully on the edge of my plate, and I thought, okay, not the angry kind of okay. The kind that comes after something inside you finally stops fighting. My name is Elise Cardin. I'm 31. I'm a data analyst at a healthcare logistics firm, and I've spent the better part of a decade being the person my family calls when everything falls apart, which, in my family, is often. That Thanksgiving was 8 months ago. I want to tell you what happened after, but first I need to explain how I got to that table and why it took me so long to put down that fork. I am the middle child, which means I was trained early to be invisible in the useful way, not invisible like nobody sees you, invisible like furniture, always there, always functional, easy to overlook until you need it. My older brother Ryan is 4 years older than me. He has a law degree he's never used, a mortgage my parents quietly helped with, and a wife named Sandra who has opinions about everything and accountability for nothing. My younger sister Jess is 27 and works part-time at a yoga studio. She's finding herself. She's been finding herself since 2019. I'm the one who found a scholarship, then a job, then another job that paid better. I sent money home when my dad's back surgery wiped out their savings. I co-signed Ryan's car lease when his credit was, in his words, going through something. I paid Jess's first and last month's rent when she moved to Portland for 6 months and then moved back. None of this was dramatic. That's what I need you to understand. It didn't happen in one big moment I could point to and say, that's where it went wrong. It happened the way water fills a glass, steadily, quietly, until one day you realize there's no room left for anything else. I didn't take vacations. My savings account had a reflex. The moment it got comfortable, something happened. Ryan's car needed new tires. My mom's dental work wasn't fully covered. Jess needed a flight home. I wired money the way other people send texts, without much thought, without expecting anything back. What I expected, what I told myself was enough, was that they knew. That somewhere underneath all of it, they understood what it cost me. They didn't. Or they did, and they decided the cost was mine to bear. Thanksgiving started normally, which in my family means barely organized chaos. My mom overcooked the green beans. My dad fell asleep during the game. Ryan and Sandra arrived 45 minutes late with a store-bought pie and the energy of people who'd been arguing in the car. I had driven 2.5 hours. I had brought a homemade sweet potato casserole and a bottle of wine I couldn't really afford. I had helped my mom set the table, fix the wobbly chair leg my dad had been meaning to fix in September, and listened to Jess talk about a podcast she wanted to start. Dinner was fine until it wasn't. It started because Sandra mentioned, casually, that they needed help with a down payment. They'd found a house. A good one. The market was moving fast. My mom looked at me. My dad looked at me. Ryan looked at his plate, which was somehow worse. I said I wasn't in a position to help right now. Gently. Carefully. The way you say something when you already know it won't land right. Sandra's face did a thing. Tight around the eyes. I just think, she said slowly, that some people in this family have a lot more flexibility than others. I told her I didn't actually. You don't have kids, she said. You don't have a mortgage. You're the only one in this family with no real life anyway, so you can handle it. Ryan laughed. A quick, helpless laugh, the kind that means I know, but I'm not going to say anything. My mom said, she didn't mean it like that, honey. My dad said nothing. He was looking at the green beans. I picked my fork back up. I finished my plate. I helped clear the table. I drove 2.5 hours home, and I sat in my apartment at 11:30 at night and thought, I've been very stupid for a very long time. The clarity that came after that night wasn't anger. I want to be specific about that because I used to think change required rage, that you needed to be furious to finally move. I wasn't furious. I was tired in a specific way. Tired like someone who'd been holding a door open for years, waiting for people to walk through who'd already found another entrance. I didn't call anyone that week. I let Ryan's texts go unanswered. I read them. He sent 3, each one a variation of Sandra didn't mean it like that. and I set my phone face down on the counter and went to bed. I called my financial advisor instead. Her name is Tanya, and she's been trying to get me to look at my actual financial picture for 2 years. I kept rescheduling. I know why now. I didn't want to see in numbers what I already knew in my gut. We met on a Tuesday. She pulled up my accounts, my statements, a spreadsheet she'd been quietly building every time I mentioned another transfer. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she turned the screen toward me. In 6 years, I had transferred or co-signed a total of $47,000 to various members of my family. Car leases, medical gaps, rent floats, emergency funds that were never emergencies so much as consequences of decisions I had no part in making. $47,000. I teach myself things. That's what I do when I can't sleep. I read, I research, I get thorough. So when I got home that night, I spent 4 hours reading about co-signed loans. About what it actually means to have your name on someone else's debt. About what you can and cannot remove yourself from, and under what circumstances. The short answer, if you've never looked into this, almost none. You co-sign, you're attached. The lender has no incentive to release you. The only exits are full repayment, refinancing in the primary borrower's name alone, which requires them to qualify without you, or default, which wrecks you both. There is no I changed my mind option. There is no family exemption. I wrote down every account where my name appeared that wasn't mine alone. Then I called my attorney. I have an attorney because 2 years ago I incorporated as a sole proprietor for some freelance consulting work, and I kept her on retainer because she was worth it. That decision turned out to be one of the better ones I've made. She walked me through my options for each co-signed item, what I could do immediately, what would take time, what I needed to document. We talked for 90 minutes. When we hung up, I had a list. I didn't tell anyone. I just started working through it. 3 months passed. They felt like the first 3 months where my life belonged to me. I declined 2 requests for money. One from Jess for a ceramics class she wanted to take, one from my mom forwarding me a link to a flight she thought I could help cover for a trip she and my dad wanted to take. I said no both times, in texts without explanation. Just not able to right now, sorry. My mom called. I let her go to voicemail. She left a message that started with, "I don't know what's going on with you lately," and ended with, "We're worried." Ryan texted that I was being distant. Sandra, apparently, told my mom I seemed depressed. I was not depressed. I was, for the first time in years, actually fine. Then the wedding happened. Ryan and Sandra had been planning a vow renewal, 2 years into their marriage, which, whatever, and they had apparently been counting on me to contribute to the catering cost. I didn't know this. It had been decided somewhere without me in the way that things in my family often are, assumed rather than asked, factored in before I was consulted. My mom called me specifically to tell me that the caterer needed a deposit by Friday and that my share would be $800. I asked her when this had been decided. She said, "We just thought, you know how you usually help with things." I told her I wouldn't be contributing this time. Silence. Then, "Elise, it's your brother's event. I understand. I'm not able to help financially this time." "Is something wrong? Are you having money problems?" I almost laughed. "No, Mom." "Then I don't understand why. I just can't do it this time." She said she'd talk to my dad. That was the end of the call. 2 days later, I got a group text from Ryan that included me, my parents, and Sandra. It said, "Just want to make sure we're all on the same page for the venue deposit. Elise, can you confirm?" I read it 4 times, then I typed, "I already spoke with Mom. I won't be contributing to this one." "Ryan, are you serious?" Sandra, "Wow, my dad. Call me when you get a chance." I didn't call. I put my phone down and finished the report I'd been working on, and I went to bed at a reasonable hour and slept without dreaming. The vow renewal was on a Saturday in March. I was invited, technically. The invitation came in a card my mom had clearly chosen, with flowers on the front, and a handwritten note inside from my mom that said, "Please come. We miss you," in her loopy cursive. Not from Ryan, not from Sandra. I went, not to celebrate, not to extend an olive branch. I went because I'd made a decision 2 months earlier. A quiet one. The kind you make alone at your kitchen table with a glass of water and your laptop. And I wanted to see if it had landed yet. It had. I could tell from the moment I walked in, and Sandra's eyes found mine across the room with an expression that was trying very hard to be neutral. Dinner was catered. Nicely, actually. I'll give them that. The speeches were long. My brother looked happy in a way that seemed real, which was the one thing about the day that gave me pause. He is not a villain. He is weak in the specific way that people are weak when they've never had to be strong. Halfway through dessert, my dad stood up. He tapped his glass. He said a few things about Ryan and Sandra, and then his eyes came to me and the register of his voice changed. There's been some tension in our family lately, he said, to the table of 30-odd people, most of whom I'd never met, and I think it's important, at a celebration like this, that we address it. I put down my dessert fork. He looked at me. Elise has stepped back from the family recently. We're not sure why, but we want her to know that we love her and that family is everything. There was a murmur. Some heads turned toward me. An aunt I rarely saw gave me a sympathetic smile that made my skin crawl. Sandra dabbed her eye. Ryan looked at the tablecloth. I reached into my bag slowly. I placed my phone on the table in front of me. I had prepared for something like this. Not this exactly, but something. I'd opened the notes app earlier and typed out a few lines just in case. I didn't need the notes. Thank you, I said, loudly enough to be heard. Since we're addressing it, I've been stepping back because for 6 years I've been the person this family calls when things go wrong. Financially, practically, consistently. I did it because I love you. I also did it until I looked up and realized my name was on $47,000 worth of other people's decisions. The murmur changed quality. I'm not angry, I said. I just stopped. I picked my fork back up. I finished my dessert. I was the only one at the table eating. Ryan stared at me. Sandra had gone very still. My mom made a sound like she was going to cry. My dad sat back down. I stayed for another 20 minutes, said goodbye to the relatives I liked, hugged my mom because she looked like she needed it. Not for me, just because I'm not cruel. And I left. The parking lot air was cold and clean. I sat in my car for a minute. My hands were completely steady. The call started that night. Ryan left a voicemail that was more confused than angry. I can't believe you did that. People were asking me questions all night. What is going on with you? Sandra texted something I didn't finish reading. My mom called twice, and both times I let it ring. My dad called at 7 in the morning. When I answered, his voice had the particular tone of a man who has decided he is owed an explanation. You embarrassed this family in front of 30 people, he said. You brought up family conflict at a public dinner, I said. I responded. That's not, we were trying to include you. We were trying to extend a hand. I was quiet for a moment. Dad, you stood up in front of strangers and framed my boundaries as a family crisis. You cut us off without warning. I said no to money requests. Multiple times. That's not cutting anyone off. He was quiet. Then, the loan on Ryan's car. Your name is still on that. I had been waiting for this. I know. My attorney is working on options. I'll keep you updated on any changes that require your cooperation. Your attorney. His voice dropped. So it's like that. It's like what's responsible, I said. For everyone involved. He hung up. I made coffee. I answered emails. I called Tanya and told her the conversation had happened, and she updated my file and we talked about where my savings account was sitting now that 3 months of not sending money had passed. The number looked different. Better. Like something I'd grown rather than something I'd been slowly emptying. The months after that were quieter than I expected. Not silent. Ryan texted sometimes, short messages, checking in a way that felt like he was trying to remember how. My mom and I found a rhythm where we called every other week and talked about things that didn't involve money. It was careful. Awkward at first, then just regular. Sandra didn't contact me. I noted that and moved on. My dad and I didn't speak for almost 2 months. When he did call, it was because he'd had a scare. Nothing serious, a chest thing that turned out to be stress, and my mom had told him to call me. He didn't apologize. He also didn't ask me for anything. We talked for 11 minutes about nothing in particular, and when we hung up, I sat with it for a while. This strange, unclenched feeling, like something that had been braced for impact, had finally relaxed. Jess and I got closer, actually. She's younger and she surprised me. She called me after the vow renewal, not to defend anyone, just to say I heard what you said at dinner and I've been thinking about it a lot. She's been thinking about a lot of things lately. Boundaries, patterns, what it means to be taken care of versus being allowed to figure things out yourself. We have longer conversations now than we ever did when I was floating her rent. The car loan resolved in the fall. Ryan refinanced in his own name. It took some work. Sandra got a promotion that helped them qualify, and my attorney sent me the paperwork confirming my removal. I signed it at my kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold beside me, and then I sat there for a while doing nothing, not celebrating, just sitting in the quiet of a thing being finished. 7 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, I went on a trip. Lisbon, 10 days. I had been putting it off for 3 years. There was always a reason not to, and the reason always had someone else's name attached to it. I booked it on a Monday in September, when the flights were cheap, and I had no particular reason not to, which was a new feeling. I packed too many books and not enough layers, and I walked until my feet ached, and I ate dinner alone at small tables near open windows, and I did not think about anyone's lease, or loan, or monthly panic. I thought about myself, what I wanted to do next, whether I wanted to stay in my apartment or find somewhere bigger, whether I wanted to take on more freelance work or step back. I thought about a person I'd been meaning to ask out for 6 months and hadn't, because I was always busy, always tired, always managing something. I texted him from a cafe in Alfama. He responded in 4 minutes. We made plans for when I got back. I'm telling you this because I know what you're thinking, that the real story is the family drama, the confrontation, the 30 people at the dinner table watching me pick up my fork. And yes, that happened. It mattered. But the real story is what came after. The trip. The text. The savings account that kept growing instead of draining. The mornings where I woke up and nothing was on fire, and the peace of that wasn't strange anymore. It was just Tuesday. I ran into Sandra at a grocery store in February. She was in the pasta aisle, and she saw me before I saw her. And I watched her decide in real time whether to say something. She did. "You look good," she said, and her voice was flat, but not mean. "Just tired?" "Thank you," I said, and I meant it neutrally, the way you accept a weather report. She looked at my cart, full, varied, nothing anxious about it. Then she looked at hers. Then back at me. "Ryan's doing better," she said. "With everything. I'm glad he talks about you." I nodded. I didn't fill the silence. This was a thing I had learned to do, not fill silences that belonged to other people. She reached past me for a box of penne. "He says you are right. He doesn't say it like that. But he says it like that. But he says it." I looked at her. She wasn't asking for anything. She was just standing in a grocery store being honest in the small, exhausted way that people are honest when they've run out of other options. "I hope things are good," I said, and I meant it. We did not hug. We both moved on to different aisles. Here's the thing I came to understand. Eventually, on a slow Tuesday somewhere between the trip in the grocery store and the morning I woke up and realized I'd slept straight through without once worrying about anyone's finances but my own. My family did not think of me as the family ATM. That framing is too simple, too satisfying, and not quite true. What they thought was more unconscious and in some ways worse. They thought of me as the kind of person who could handle things, who preferred to handle things, who was built for it. The strong one, the reliable one, the one who didn't have a real life to worry about, which was not cruelty on Sandra's part so much as a belief they had all quietly agreed on because it was convenient. The problem with being the person who can handle things is that it becomes self-reinforcing. You handle things, so they give you more things to handle, so you handle those. And the loop tightens until one day you realize that your whole identity in the family has been constructed around your usefulness. And usefulness, it turns out, is a very thin substitute for being loved. I wasn't unloved, I want to be clear about that. My parents love me in the way people love things they've stopped looking at carefully. My brother loves me in the way that people love whoever makes their life easier. That's not nothing, but it's also not the same as being seen. I didn't need them to see me. That's the part that surprised me most. I thought I was waiting for someone to finally acknowledge how much I'd carried. The moment of recognition, the apology, the tearful admission that they'd taken me for granted. It never really came. A version of it came from Ryan, quietly, through Jess, secondhand. A gesture toward it from Sandra in a grocery store. That was it. And it was enough. It was enough because I had stopped needing it the way I used to. When Sandra said at Thanksgiving that I had no real life, she was wrong. I had a real life. I had just been spending it on everyone else's. I stopped spending it. I put it back where it belonged. That's all this is in the end. Not a revenge story. Not a triumph. Just a woman who figured out, a little late and a little expensively, that she was the only one who had ever been keeping score, and that the moment she stopped, the game ended, and she could finally go home. I turned 32 last month. I went to dinner with 2 friends and the man from the text, and I laughed until my face hurt, and then I went home and slept 10 hours and didn't dream about anything at all. That's it. That's the whole story. I wasn't useless. I was the one holding everything up. And when I finally let go, what fell wasn't me. I've been thinking a lot lately about what it actually costs to be the reliable one. Not in dollars, though I know that number now, and it's specific. And it's $47,000, and seeing it on a spreadsheet is a different kind of education than just knowing it vaguely in your chest. I mean, the other cost. The invisible one. The years of small decisions where I chose someone else's stability over my own. The vacations I didn't take. The relationships I didn't invest in because I was always tired. Always managing, always one wire transfer away from someone else's crisis becoming my responsibility. What I understand now is that none of it happened because my family was evil. Ryan isn't evil. My parents aren't cruel. Sandra said something awful at that table and she meant it, but she meant it the way people mean things when they've been quietly taught that certain people exist to absorb difficulty. They learned that I can handle things. I kept proving it. The loop closed around me so gradually that by the time I noticed, I was completely inside it. That's the thing about being capable. It can become a trap if you're not careful. Not because capability is bad, but because the people around you will calibrate their expectations to your ceiling, not their own. If you keep raising your ceiling, they never have to raise theirs. I raised mine for 6 years and called it love, and it was love, but it was also something else. It was me failing to teach the people I cared about what I actually needed them to do. Stopping wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that because I think that's how people expect the story to go. The big dramatic withdrawal, the satisfying collapse, the vindication. Some of that happened. The dinner. The parking lot. My dad's phone call at 7 in the morning. But none of it felt like winning. It felt like finally stopping a behavior that had never been serving either of us well. Here's what I've come to think. Every choice has a consequence, and every pattern has a direction it's heading. The direction of my pattern was toward a version of myself that existed entirely for other people's comfort. The moment I changed the pattern, the consequences changed too. Not overnight, not cleanly, but they changed. Ryan figured out how to refinance his own loan. Jess started thinking harder about her own financial decisions. My parents adjusted, slowly, awkwardly, the way people adjust when the scaffolding they've been leaning on is gently, firmly removed. They didn't crumble. That's the part I hadn't fully believed. I think somewhere underneath all of it, I had convinced myself that I was genuinely necessary, that without me holding things together, everything would fall apart and it would be my fault. That's not strength, that's fear dressed up as responsibility. Real strength, I think, is knowing when to hold and when to let go. It's having the discipline to stop doing something that feels like love but is actually just comfort. Theirs, not yours. It's being willing to be misunderstood for long enough that the people around you have to recalibrate. Elise Cardin went to Lisbon. She slept 10 hours and didn't dream. She texted someone she'd been meaning to text for 6 months and he answered in 4 minutes. That's what it looks like when you stop spending yourself on people who forgot to notice the cost.